his standards for Hasidim, we know the Alter Rebbe demanded, as it says, the attribute of truth. The Alter Rebbe wanted sincere people, real people. So he put into his letter that he wrote to the Chassidim after Yutes Kislev, the word B'midas Emes. Chassidim say, had the Alter Rebbe not written B'midas Emes with the midah, with the attribute of truth, he would have had another 50,000 Chassidim. But he wasn't interested in those that are not truthful. He wanted real Chassidim. Other tzaddikim had different standards. For instance, Rabbi Nachman, when he looked for his Chassidim, he said, you know what? For you to be my Chassid, I need you to believe in yourself, that you have a pure point. Those who are drawn to Breslov Chassidus are very, very inspired by the idea that every Yid has got an Akud Tova. And Chabad Chassidus also talks about it, but Breslov is very big in that. You have a good point that can never get tarnished, that can never get dirty, and therefore never really give up on yourself. So what was he looking for? He was looking for people that at least have one tiny little bit of something of goodness still inside of them. And he said, with that, I can work with you. When the Rebbe said Basi Legani, the Rebbe kind of revolutionized a whole new idea of who the Rebbe was looking to sign up on his team. It's amazing. The Rebbe called for a complete different qualification. The criteria that was required by the Rebbe to join his team for the most important task, and that is to finalize and to conclude the entire purpose of creation. So the Rebbe asked, the Rebbe said, this is what I need from you. I need anybody that's going to be on my team. If you don't have this, please don't show up. I need darkness. If you have darkness, then you can join. If you have questions, if you have doubts, if you have confusion, if you're plagued with laziness, if you're depressed, if you're filled with all kinds of ugly and despicable desires, then you're on my team. The more you have, the better you are. I need people with darkness. Because the way we're going to finish this work, transform the world and bring the Eibishter himself down into the physical world, is through transforming darkness to light. Amazing, because there isn't anybody who didn't qualify for the Rebbe's army. Unless maybe a very, very holy tzaddik, but okay, because the Rebbe had some work for him too. You need darkness. And with darkness, it's like striking a match. In order to create the fire, you need to strike it against something. So the Rebbe explains that you have to strike against the darkness that's inside of you. The shtus, the stupidity. The Rebbe said, the stupider you are, the better. Not stupid, chassid is not stupid, but the more stupidity you have in your nefesh habahamis, in your animal soul, the more you qualify to join in this task of transforming darkness into light and making this world into a godly place. Like we know the famous story of the person who came to the Rebbe after he couldn't separate from his girlfriend who wasn't Jewish, thinking that he would be doomed forever, like everybody else told him, finito. And the Rebbe said, I'm envious of you, because you got a lot of darkness. Can you imagine what kind of light you can create from that darkness? Even I can create such light. I'm the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but I can't create that light because I don't have where to strike my match against. I don't have a darkness like that, but you do. That's awesome. So we need darkness. But we also know that it says, Kates som lachoshech. The end has come to darkness. That even though there is darkness, and darkness serves a purpose, and perhaps the greatest purpose, but there is a time when darkness has to end. Once we finish our work of transforming darkness to light, we don't need darkness anymore. And that's where we stand tonight. Goodbye to darkness forever and ever. Tonight we reach 70 years. 70 years represents the completion of the task The work for every human being in this world is 70 years. Your work is 70 years. That's the task of elevating life. This world is a world composed of 7. Everything in the world is 7. Time and space is 7. 7 days in the week. 7 directions in space. 6 directions, but there is a center point from where you move towards the direction, so it's 7. 7 colors of the rainbow. 7 musical notes. 70 nations, 7 continents. Everything is 7. The world is 7. Since we're sent in, and that creates what's called in the Chassidus, it's called Olam. Olam means Meloshin Helen Vehester, concealment and darkness. That's the world that Hashem put us in, so that we should purify the world, elevate the world, and discover God Almighty, the Eibishter Himself, bring Him down to live in His desire, in His home where He wanted to live so badly, and that is this world. So strongly the Eibishter has a taiva, has a desire to live in this world. A world of darkness, a world that's transformed from darkness to light. And each and every one of us play our own individual role. Everybody gets a slice of darkness. That's why our lives are considered to be 70 years. 70 years. 70 years also for the generation. But once 70 years is over, it's finished. So what happens after you finish your 70 years of struggle? Every person goes through struggle. What happens after 70? Now hopefully Hashem gives everybody life much more than 70 years. Live and live. We live to 120. The Rebbe gave us the ability to live to Chaim Nitzchiyim. We should live on forever. But after a person fulfills his task in purifying darkness, transforming darkness to light, what happens? He goes out of the darkness. The neshama leaves the body. There's no more darkness. There's only light. There's only bliss and ecstasy. Even in the physical world, forget about what Torah, I'm not going to forget what Torah says, but all the people that describe, near-death experiences, almost universally, everybody experiences kind of this ecstasy and this bliss and this powerful light that's pulling them. That's what it is. The Alter Rebbe says, the moment the neshama leaves the body, the Alter Rebbe says it suddenly sees the emes, it sees the full truth. The Alter Rebbe describes it as a moment of extraordinary shame when you feel like, you're standing in front of God and God was everywhere, how did I do? Now takes place, I guess, for purification. But the idea is that there's no more concealments. Once you leave, there's no more concealments. But where has the concealment ended? For that particular neshama, because it's not here in the world anymore. But down here in the world, darkness continues. Why does darkness continue? Because the project isn't over. There are other pieces of darkness that need to be transformed. There are other pieces of time and space, other elements of time and space that have not been converted to light. Every single person and every single generation faces a whole different set of challenges. And that's why the oilam, the concealment and the darkness continues from generation to generation. But when do we know that darkness is over? And there's no more room for darkness at all. When the last generation finishes its 70 years. 70 years is the tkufa, is the period. So when the last generation, and there isn't going to be another generation of exile. When the last generation ends its job, then there is no more darkness forever and ever. And then what happens? What does 70 stand for? In Hebrew, the letter that represents 70 is the letter ayin. And ayin means eye. Ayin be ayin, eye to eye. Yiru we will see, b'shuv Hashem etzion. We will see when God returns the returnees of Zion, when the Eibishter brings us back. Eye to eye we will see, 70 we will see. Your eyes will behold your teacher. Which refers to the Eibishter, which could also refer to our beloved Rebbe as our teacher, as a communicator of divinity and godliness to the world, who we so miss because he's been shrouded in darkness for close to 30 years. We're already in 26 years since Gimel Tammuz, of concealment. Ayin b'ayin, eye to eye we will see. You know why we know we will see, and now has come the time to see? Because our Rebbe told us that we are the last generation of Golus. And the Rebbe didn't say this as a wishful prayer. The Rebbe said this as fact. The Rebbe probably said this thousands of times, again and again and again, that we're the last generation of exile, but he didn't stop with that. He said that we're the first generation of Geula. That means we close out the darkness. Tonight, darkness expires. This is not just an ordinary night that we've gotten together. This is the night. Halayla Hazer. You can say, Leil Shemurim, the night that the Eibishter has been waiting for. I can't tell you for sure. I hope, I have a munah, I'm waiting that we will dance straight into 770 from here. Somehow we will all end up there. Somehow it will become so blurry, this whole situation, because the joy will be so intoxicated that we don't even know how we suddenly ended with all the other Farbrengens that are kind of flowing right into 770. And there is our Rebbe, and there is all the light, and there is all the Jewish people, and there is the third base on Mikdash, and there, so this is how the Rebbe described it. This is how the Rebbe would describe it. And there, Atot is Mashiach Tzedkeinu. And Atot is that all this, it can happen, it should happen. There's no reason why it shouldn't happen. The only thing that doesn't let it happen is our doubt. So let's stop doubting. It's going to happen. Why not? So l'chaim Yidden. Tonight we should open our eyes. Tonight will sein lichtig. B'chol b'nei Yisrael oyer. Not just b'mashloisa, not just the Yidden, but the entire world will be lit up. Ayin b'ayin. Let's see with our eyes. Let's see the Gula Shlema. Let's see everything. Let's see Elokus. Let's see our Rebbe. Let's see Mashiach Tzedkeinu, and let's see him now. L'chaim. Chumash.
I have another one today.
The Yidden are standing right by the Yam Suf. The Yidden are standing by the sea. And the Eibishter says, David el b'nei Yisrael v'yisou. Speak to the Jewish people, and they should travel. It says, David el b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people, v'yisou, they should travel. But the question is, where should they travel? They're cornered. They're surrounded. Behind them are the Egyptians breathing down their necks. In front of them is a sea, is an ocean. There's nowhere to go. They are sandwiched between the Mitzrayim and the ocean, as the Medrash says on the side. If they were going to go out towards the desert, there were a bunch of wild beasts over there. There was nowhere to go. They were literally cornered. And the Eibishter says, tell the Jewish people, vayisa'u, they should travel. So Rashi makes a very interesting statement. Rashi says these words, Ein hayam oimed lifneichem. The sea does not stand before you. The sea is not there, which is a strange thing. What do you mean there is no sea? There is a sea, but Rashi says that Ein hayam oimed lifneichem. So the way you understand it, it means, and Rashi himself says it right afterwards, it is enough, the merit of your fathers and your emunah that you believed in me, that I should split the sea before you. That's what Rashi says. It's enough. You had emunah, and therefore, and you have merit of your fathers, I'm going to split the sea. And I was bothered when I was reading this, because what does it mean? Why does Rashi have to say in the beginning the sea is not standing? There is a sea, it's just that what? The Eibishter says I'm going to split it. There's a lashon over there that Rashi says the sea is not before you. What does that mean? There is no sea. Sadly, there are times a person, God forbid, needs to get an amputation. Chas v'sholem, they need to get an amputation. And they amputated, chas v'sholem, their leg. Now before they amputated the leg, for many years, this person had athlete's foot on their leg. And they experienced extreme itch. That's not the reason for the amputation, but they did suffer from, in addition to whatever happened, the injury, they had an athlete's foot. And then, after the leg is amputated, we know there's a concept called, no one should know chas v'shalom ever from this, there's a known condition called phantom pain. Phantom pain is that you don't have a leg anymore, but you still have, your toes are still itching. There is no leg, but your toes are itching. So you reach down to itch the imaginary toes, but here you can't get even the relief of itching the toes that you would get when the foot was there, because there is really no toes to get the from the itch. So all you have is an itch and nothing to relieve the itch through itching the itch, through scratching the itch. That's right. So that's a very, very sad situation. That means because the brain has not yet disassociated. The brain has not yet disassociated from the leg. So in the brain, the leg still exists even though it doesn't exist in reality. The Eibishter was saying to the Jewish people, you know why there is a sea there right now? I split the sea already. There is no sea. There's no sea there. You know why you're still seeing a sea? Because last week when you walked on the beach, you saw the sea. And then a month earlier when you came down to stroll on the beach, you saw the sea. And every time you looked out from the labor camp, wherever you were over the sea coast, and you looked out and you saw the crashing ocean and the sea. So the sea has etched itself so deeply in your conscious, in your psyche, that to you there is a sea. And even if I remove the sea is still there. There are certain realities that we hold on to even though they don't exist anymore. What does that mean, Bepoil? The Eibishter said as follows. In Kriyas Yamsuf, the reason there is a sea in the physical, Chassidus teaches us, anybody that learned a little Chassidus knows, the reason there is a physical sea in this world is because that's a reflection of a higher sea in the world of Yetzirah. There is a sea. And the reason there is a sea in the world of Yetzirah, that's just a manifestation of a higher sea in the world of Bria, the world of creation. And that is only a manifestation of a higher sea in the world of Atzilus. So there's many levels, and that's the real backbone of the sea. The Eibishter says, I removed the sea. On all levels, Kriyas Yamsuf happened. The only place it didn't happen yet is in the most external level of physicality. It's really split already, because there can't be a physical existence without a spiritual backup. But what's not allowing it to split? What's not allowing it to split is because you're still holding on to your imaginary reality of what you saw yesterday. And because you looked at the world yesterday like there's a sea, so it's still there for you when it really doesn't even exist. And what's the proof? What did Nachshon ben Aminadav do? Nachshon ben Aminadav jumped in. And I always understood it. What does it mean Nachshon is jumping in? Mesiras Nefesh. He's someone who's willing to risk his life, he's willing to die. He doesn't know, he's jumping in. He could drown chas v'shalom, but he's willing, he's meiser nefesh, he's sacrificing his life. But that's not right. This is not a time of mesiras nefesh, this is not a Kedas Yitzchak, this is not the time of Rabbi Akiva when Jews were giving their lives up. This is not during the Spanish Inquisition or the Crusaders that the avodah was to give your life up al Kiddush Hashem. This is not what it was. This is Yetzias Mitzrayim. This is a moment of redemption. We're not looking for people to die for God's sake right now. Nachshon ben Aminadav wasn't dying. He wasn't sacrificing his life. Nachshon ben Aminadav did what the Rebbe said. Open your eyes. There is no sea. Geula is here already. He jumped in and he said, hey, take a look. When he went in, there was no water. It didn't exist. It's not there. And he said, Chevra, I'm telling you, it looks, from up there, it looks like there's a sea. Come down here. Take the leap. And that's what they did. And as soon as everybody made that move to let go of the shore of Egypt, to let go of where they're standing in that gullus, and to free themselves and be willing to taste Geula, be willing to taste or to trust Moshe Rabbeinu, that he says Mashiach is here. He says Geula is here. As soon as they walked in, it wasn't there. The sea wasn't there because there's no more gullus. There's no more concealment. There's light. And here we are, suffering from golus-itis. We as a group of Chassidim, we're great, we've done amazing things, but we got stuck with golus-itis and we can't seem to flush it out of our system. It's amazing. We believe every word of our Rebbe. We're willing to give our lives for him. Everything. Operations, life matters. Matters of life and death. Everything, everything, everything. A half a word of the Rebbe is enough to send a chassid for a lifetime of Mesiras Nefesh in the middle of Yehupitzville. Him and his family and his grandchildren to live there. And here we have tens and tens. I'm rocky, I didn't count. So many sichas after sichas after sichas where the Rebbe is telling us, Chevre, the Golus is over, Mashiach is here, open up your eyes. Look who I am, look what the world around you is happening. See the way Mashiach is already here, he's completely transforming the world and everything. And we're like, Rebbe, we don't understand what you're talking about. What happened? Kizeh ish Moshe, this man Moshe that is sticking out as Mitzrayim, lo yadanu mahoyelo, we don't know what happened to him, and therefore I don't know what the Rebbe was talking about in Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, what the Rebbe was saying, so let's go back to the 70s. Come on, and if we made that we had that thought, Chevra, tonight is the time to change it. Tonight, let's dear ourselves to have Amunah again. Let's bring ourselves back to the place, to the mindset, to that powerful, powerful state of connection that we had in 1990 and 1991 and 1992 when the Rebbe was telling us from week to week, and the Rebbe was pouring kerosene onto the flames of Mashiach every week again and again. And whenever we thought we can catch our breath and slow down, the Rebbe went again and kept on saying, and here in Nevuah, and here this. And it was incredible, and that Mashiach is already poil in the world, and these things can only Melech HaMashiach can do them. Unbelievable things the Rebbe keeps on saying again and again and again. And we were so there before the concealment, before the darkness, before the test. It's time to get back there, Chavre. Really. The Rebbe is emes. The Rebbe is true. True, absolute emes, absolute truth. No monkey business. If he said a nevuah, he meant it. He said a prophecy, he meant it. Of course there's going to be a concealment. There's going to be a concealment. Everything has to come through a test. Especially something as monumental as the final step of all of humanity. The final purpose of all of Judaism. It's going to come through a test. No, we don't have to be nispol from it. We really don't have to be nispol. We have to know the emes. The emes is that every single word that was said is emes and true, and then we're ready by the Geula, but so we have to open our eyes, and we're the ones who make it happen. That means as soon as we open our eyes and start seeing a Mashiach-dig world, the more Mashiach-dig the world becomes. The last 3 years we've seen Mashiach momentum in the world in an incredible way. And you don't have to be a Lubavitcher to see this. And have all Hasidus that the Rebbe told us. Just yesterday, the rabbi, chief rabbi, one of the chief rabbis in Israel, Rabbi. That's the idea, that's the Chidush, it's the Gilui of Atzmus. Course, not course, doesn't make a difference. You are a godly being. The Eibishter is real. You can't run away from the Eibishter anymore. That's the reality. That's Mashiach. L'chaim Yid. Why do you keep Shabbos? Not because the Eibishter likes Shabbos. You keep Shabbos because that's you. The Eibishter, whose idea is Shabbos? How much does the Eibishter appreciate Shabbos? Infinitely. Endlessly. It's him. So what is it to us after Mashiach comes, Shabbos? It's who I am. It's not a question. It's not I'm going out of my way. Oh, I can't wait to get my phone back on. This is who I am. Davening, learning Torah. These are not things that we're being religious, we're being spiritual. I'm just being me. This is who I am. I am, at my very core, 613 mitzvahs. Because I identify with the nitzutz of Moshiach, which is my etzem, as the Rebbe says, which is one with the etzem of the Eibishter. That's what it means, Mashiach. So, again, I'm not talking about a chitzoniistic thing of just running around screaming Mashiach. I mean, start literally to realize that Yiddishkeit, you cannot be without it. There's no such a thing that I don't come to daven. I come because that's who I am. I am Shachris Mincha and Ma'ariv with a minyan. I'm here. This is my being. I am Limud HaTorah. This is where my mind works. You say, well, I don't feel that yet. Okay, that's why we start. That's why you have to jump into the sea. Things have changed. The Rebbe already revealed to us that this is where the world is at. That means this is where we're holding now. We can still hold on to the athlete's foot and pretend that we have the Yetzer Hara still, the old self, that our being is outside of the Lukus and we're trying to get in. We can pretend that. But here's the interesting thing. It used to be, years ago, before we were living in Yemoisa Mashiach, if you itched or if you scratched your Nefesh HaBahamis, which means you gave in to your external self, everybody knows that scratching an athlete's foot is really not too beneficial. You should get good cream and fix it. But at least it will give you relief, a sensation for 5 minutes. But as we said before, if you don't have a foot and you're scratching the imaginary athlete's thing, it's not going to help, even 5 minutes, because it's a health garnish. You're kratzing in Weltanai. So here's the deal. Today's days, if we think we're going to get ourselves kind of comfortable by satisfying our Nefesh HaBahamis and not being our true self, it's not even working. Even the little bit of relief that we used to think we're going to get, it doesn't work anymore. Because we're living in a time where truth is coming to the surface. Where truth, your inner deepest self is being revealed. And who are you? You're a Yid. And what gives you pleasure? The Eibishter gives you pleasure. Godliness gives you pleasure. And to try to deny that is still holding on to a reality that is getting less and less every day. A person can think that they'll be the last guy holding on to Golas. Okay, fine. It's not a big kunz. It's not a compliment. Mashiach is here already. Let's be forward thinking. The world is heading to a much higher, deeper, truer place. Everybody, not just Jews. Everybody. You realize we're coming to a time, the Rambam says, the whole world will be occupied with knowing the Eibishter. So we are right now at a period called the time of automation. Everything in the world is going to become automated soon. Millions and millions of people are going to be without a job. Because computers are going to do everything, robots are going to do everything. In other words, all the stuff that the Medaber, there's 4 types, there's Doimem, Chai, Sameach, and Medaber. There's the inanimate, there is the animal, there's the plant, and then there is the animal, and then there is the human. Till now, humans were busy with what? With making a living, with making the world work, with agriculture, with farming, with all the stuff, with all the human labor that they took. It's amazing. We reached a time when the Doimen is going to do the job of the Medaber. So the Medaber is going to have to start finding a new meaning to life. Do you realize that any day, we're not talking about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we are going to have millions of people begging and looking for something to do because they're going to be going crazy? And who are they going to look to? Who are they going to look to? We better have something to tell them. Literally, in Norway, I think it was, they did a study. In Norway, they did a study. They took, I think it was 40,000 people, and they told them, I think, for 6 or 9 months that they're not allowed to work. And they were going to take care of all their expenses. They had them be that way. And they did an experiment. And it was terrible. Because you ended up with people on drugs and all kinds of horrible things. The think tanks of the world must be thinking about this. Because you're at a point right now where you might end up with millions of people that we don't need them. They're only consumers. Who needs them? They're only eating, they're only taking up things, they can't provide anything because there's nothing they can do. So humans are going to have a different, are going to have to produce something new. What are they going to produce? So Rambam says, oh, so we need to be ready to teach the whole world. We as Jews. This is where the world is heading to. I'm saying not just the Jewish world. So as a Chabad Chassid, within the world itself, you have a world, then you have Jews. Amongst the Jews, you have Baruch Hashem Yidden who are Zeichet to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. Amongst those that are learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, you have those that were Zeichet to Pnimiyas HaTorah. To know the inner purpose and the inner meaning of life, to know the inner secrets, to know the ultimate, right? So Dafka, how does it make sense that we're dealing in such an amazing time when you are so precious on the workforce, each and every one of us? It's so important, those who have access to Chassidus, that can learn. And if we don't, today so much Chassidus became so accessible. So many shiurim are explained so much in English, so much brought down to people that maybe didn't go to yeshiva and have the full experience of learning. So for us as Chassidim to be busy ourselves with stuff that the rest of the world is already going to soon drop, and it doesn't make any sense. We need to be at the forefront. We need to be the trailblazers. We need to be the teachers, the mentors. Chassidim, this is who we are. So what do we need to do as Chassidim? We have to start being Chassidim. Immerse ourselves in Teirasei Shel Mashiach. Every single one of us. So what are we going to do? This Yud Shvat, make achlatis. We're gonna. Chassidus will, here in New Haven, there'll be like non-stop Chassidus. And the beautiful thing is, we're living in a time when as Mashiach, the more Mashiach kicks in, the more Parnasa becomes miraculous. That's the way it is. Parnasa literally becomes miraculous. I used to do fundraising. I have a center. Truth is, I didn't do fundraising because I hate fundraising. I don't do it, but somehow I had no breda. I had no choice. I had to go eventually after I did everything I possibly could do, and not to have to pick up the phone and call someone, meaning to give myself, I would even clean my desk so that I don't have to give myself something busy, some excuse that I have to do something else, and not fundraise. Fine. Lately, I'm seeing, I can't explain it. I mamish can't explain it. Literally, every day I'm seeing miracles after miracles after miracles in a way that I don't have to do things. It's just, the Eibishter is throwing it from here, from there, from there. Whenever I'll tell you, it just happened last week. Last week, I had to send out my rent for the shul. Okay, so it was, it's expensive rent. It's not like $8,000, $8,200 every single month for this, to pay for the. So I'm not paying the rent of the first of the month. Baruch Hashem, the landlord is nice, so he calls me on the 30th. So I'm taking a look at the bank, and there's 5,000, and I need another 3,000. I don't have it. Yeah, 3,200. I don't have it. So, okay, there's a guy who takes an office by me, so he's going to, I went to say, so he said, oh yeah, I'll give it to you already now for next month. He's paying already for next month, I'm still using it for last month. Fine. So he says, okay, he sends me PayPal 1,000. So now I need 2,000. Chasing after a guy who promised me 2 months ago 2,000 for an event that I made. He sponsored the event, he never gave it to me. So I called him already just a few times because the guy already promised, so he's not picking up the phone, he's not answering shit. So I'm not scratching my head. Mamish, I don't give much time for it, but it was scratching my head. I needed, I think, something like that, 200, 2,300. And then, the very same day, I had someone make a flyer. We had a big event for 70 years in Los Angeles. I had this guy make a flyer for me. And it was me and other shuls. So he sends me the bill. That'd be $450 for the flyer. This fantastic graphic work. And I have this thing that every time he sends me the bill, I pay it immediately. This time things were a little tight, so he sent it to me already Thursday before. And I didn't pay him. So then he sent me a reminder. He sent me the bill, the invoice again. It was last week, I think, Thursday. He sent me the invoice, Wednesday. He sends me the invoice again. And I'm feeling bad that I'm ignoring the invoice, but I know that if I'm going to send him the 450, then I'm going to be lacking another 450. So, then I said to myself, this guy did the work. You have to pay a person right when he does the work. It's not fair. You pay him, and then the same Ebershter who's going to send you the 2,000, he'll send you the extra 450. So I said, okay. So I opened up PayPal, and I sent him the 450. Then I take a look and I say, hey, I have 2,600 in PayPal. I didn't even know, it was sitting there. So it's good, I just had to transfer it to the bank, 2,600. Had I not opened it up, I would have been driving myself crazy. Where am I going to find them? I had no idea because, I don't know, donations came in, things were sitting there, and I wasn't watching it, forgot about it. So the money was there, I thought I'm in trouble, I wasn't even in trouble. But only because I said, you know what, trust the Eibishter. A few weeks ago, she's engaged. So she comes with this young fellow. I had invited them both. She wanted me to be by her l'chaim. So I said, oh, she wants to do it in 2 weeks, fine. She said, her husband will be in town. I said, yeah, okay. So I invited them to come to me Friday night. So I'm taking him and her home to my house. When we get home, actually, it's a crazy story. I'm walking. Turns out I heard him the way he was saying. He's a very modern guy, but I can hear the way he's talking. He had an aliyah or whatever, or even from Friday night before, and I heard him say something. He was talking as a Chassidish Yiddish from Borough Park. So I said, okay, this seems to be a guy who's been on a journey. Then he comes home to my house, and my wife says, oh, so you're from Borough Park? Yeah. So my wife says, oh, my husband is also from Borough Park. Fine. So I just say, oh yeah, you know the house? I described to my father's house. My father's a unique looking house. It had a dome. It was like interesting. Sure. I said, okay, it's nice. He said he liked it so much in the shul. He comes, she brings him to my Monday night shir. I give every week a Monday night shir. She brings him to the shir. And it was a very intense shir, actually. It was a shir where I was a little brave. I was speaking about the Rebbe a lot, about Mashiach, and I saw him sitting down, and I said, I don't want to chase this guy away. And I said, I'm going to make these cheshbonos. I don't know where the guy is holding. I'm going to talk about the Rebbe as a Navi and this and that. Who knows where this, I got to tune down. I'm not. So I give this whole thing, and I'm sure by the end, he's like... Anyways, after the shir, it was about an hour and a half. He says, the shir was great, but your chairs are awful. He said, I can't sit. He says, you got to get new chairs. I'll pay for them. Okay, I took him up on it. It was Chadal Tavis. So I give shiurim on Torah or L'Guti Torah for hours, every Thursday night. I've been teaching already for 15 years. Not my place is not 15 years old, but even before that, a whole night, something's in the 3-4 hours. So I was thinking, the Alter Rebbe says, listen, you need new chairs. People are not going to come if they're not comfortable. So this guy comes, Chadal Tavis, does we get new chairs? Oh, I'm going to get new chairs. I want everybody shopping. I think it's got to be comfortable, it's got to look good. Let's just say it wasn't cheap chairs. And I was a little worried to call him with the price. I called him, and he thought it would be a little less, but he paid for the chairs. I'm my fundraising, I'm looking, this guy flies into my shul. Then the other day, I was kind of giving him chassid instructions. Him and her, they came to meet me in Crown Heights just the other day. He says he wants to take me out for dinner, just 2 days ago. So I'm sitting with her, with them, with both. And it's funny. There's people there, they want to get their way, they get their way. We go into the restaurant says they're closed. So he's already, come on. He says, you got to tell them to open up. He says, what do you mean open up? We're closed. He says, if we pay, can you get it open? She says, no, it's closed. He says, no, but if we really pay. Anyways, he went in and he bribed them. Got the whole thing open. They said, you got to order very fast. Anyways, okay, we're sitting. As we're talking about someone who used to daven in my shul, like a whole story, she brings it up with him. And I say, okay, he doesn't daven by me anymore because we don't have a good children's program. Why don't we have a good children's program? Because I don't have place. I just don't have place So I happened to say to her, there's quite a few people who left my shul because once the kids get older, they need to have somewhere else because they need a good program. I wasn't even thinking. I was Masiach Levitum. I was saying that we don't have place. So he pipes up and he says, no, you don't have place. So I don't know. I'm just saying the Eibishter puts this Israeli girl. She comes. It turns out he's my cousin. I was getting married, so he's taking me to Eretz Yisrael to do the condition. He says, good. I'll tell you the end of the story. Hopefully we'll have a good news soon. But I'm just saying, Nisim v'neflayas, such stories happen every day. You just got to go with the flow. You got to go with Geula flow. You got to go with Mashiach. You got to go with Lichtigkeit. And he's telling me, the interesting thing is, he says to me, you know why I like, he says, I don't agree with everything you're saying, but I see that you're speaking from a true place, and you're not chitzoniistic, you're very real, he says, and therefore, and I was scared that if I'm going to be real, by that talk, he's going to run away. He says, the Adarabah, he says, that's why you're speaking to me. That's what he says. Because you're not trying to impress people, you're just telling truth. That's what he says to me. So it's that's where we're holding. But Darf Zayin Emestig, we have to be true, real. Mashiach, the Eibishter is real. Mashiach is real. Elokus is real. The L'chaim. The other day, I was learning in the Gemara Masechtas Brachos. There was this big inspiration around the world. What happens in the Jewish world always inspires me. It's nice to see hundreds of thousands of Jews finishing all of Shas, whether the Lubavitchers should learn Daf HaYomi or not. The Frierdiker Rebbe was necessarily a big fan of Daf HaYomi. It doesn't take away from the Indian that Siyumim happened where so much Torah has been learned by so many Jews. Imagine how much. It definitely is the biggest drive of Limud HaTorah that exists for the Amcha, for the general public. So like every round of Daf HaYomi, I get inspired and I learn the first few blot, and then I kind of fizzles out. So happened now. I didn't give up yet, but I'm about 30 days behind. In any case, the other day I was learning Daf Tesam Beis. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara says you have to be Saimech Geula L'Tfilah. You have to connect Geula, redemption, to Tfilah, to davening. So the Gemara says, hold it. You say Hashem's Vasei Tiftach. You say Hashem's Vasei Tiftach. That means you're supposed to say Goal Yisrael, the Redeemer of Israel, and then you're supposed to go immediately to Shemon Esrei. So the Gemara says, you say Hashem's Vasei Tiftach. You say Hashem's Vasei Tiftach, that's a hefsek, that's an interruption. So the Gemara says, no, Kivin that Kivin le Rabbanan, since the Rabbanan were the ones who were mesaken it, it's like a long davening. It's as if you're not starting davening with Shemon Esrei. You're starting davening with Hashem Tzvasai Tiftach. That's where Tefillah begins. So you're still being Soymech Geula L'Tefillah. You're still connecting the two. Okay, that's understandable. Then the Gemara says, but how do you, a proof? What's a proof? Because by Ma'ariv we say Hashkiveinu. By Ma'ariv we say Hashkiveinu. Now Hashkiveinu is an interruption. It's a prayer that Hashem should put us to watch us when we're sleeping and so on and so forth. Hashem should bet us down. That's what Hashkiveinu is, It will be like betting you down. The Eibishter should help us go to sleep. And then, so that's a hefsek, because the bracha before that is Goal Yisrael, and you're supposed to put Geula next to Tefillah, now you're making Hashkiveinu. So the Gemara gives the strangest answer. The Gemara says, Kivon that Kinu le Rabbanan, since the Rabbanan were mesakin Hashkiveinu, hear these words. This has not made my eyes pop out, or my ears pop out. It's like a long Geula. A long Geula? Hashem's Sfasei Tiftach is Ketfila Arichta. It's like a long tefillah. But Hashkivenu is Geula Arichta. It's a long Geula. I said, there's got to be something to this Gemara over here. Geula Arichta, this is... So I'm puzzled. I'm thinking, what could this mean? And then it occurred to me, this is a thought. I think it's real. Geula L'Tfila means what? So in Chassidus we learn that the power of Geula is related to Yesod. And Tefillah is Malchus. In many Maimarim, when it talks about Vayigash Elov Yehuda, that Yosef and Yehuda have a meeting, Chassidus says that's the union of Nismach Geula L'Tfila. That Yosef and Yehuda come together. Geula Shaykh to Ge'ocha Toiv, it says. If Toiv will redeem you. Toiv is Yesod. Okay. So what does it mean? Tefillah means attachment. Tefillah means attachment. So, and that's Malchus. When we daven Shemona Esrei, you're supposed to stand in front of the king. It means God is right in front of you. There's no more darkness. The Eibishter is right in front of you. In Chassidus it says you're in Olam Atzilus when you daven Shemona Esrei. The Eibishter is concrete, is real. Your mamash there. There's no more concealments. So let's translate that. When is the world going to be in a state of tefillah? After Mashiach comes. When Atzilus is going to be revealed in this Olam HaGashmi, when Olam HaAsiyah is going to be in that state, that's Naftulei Elikim Niftalti. The whole world is now synchronized and mechuber with Elokus. That's already after Mashiach comes. What's the period of Geula? That's the time when there's still darkness and we need a Geula to take us out of the darkness. So Geula starts by the 6th Chabad Rebbe. The Friediger Rebbe's name is Yosef. And the Friediger Rebbe is the one who started Geula. The Rebbe's entire Kach of Geula is all based on the Friediger Rebbe's La'alta L'tshuva Le'alta L'Geula. Friediger Rebbe is the energy of the Geula. Now in the Rebbe's life, there's 2 periods. There's post-Mashiach and there's pre-Mashiach. In the pre-Mashiach years, the Rebbe is still a continuation of the Friediger Rebbe. It's all a continuation of the Friediger Rebbe. The Rebbe doesn't even see himself almost as Rebbe. The Rebbe is like, I'm going to be Masker Al-Atziyah, and everything is the Friediger Rebbe. The Rebbe is Yehuda, but he's the 7th one, but he's still attached to Yosef. It's still... But then there is, after Mashiach comes. So now, the Gemara says, the way it's supposed to be, is you're supposed to be Mismach Geula L'Tfila. That we go through the Friediger Rebbe and the Rebbe, and you go immediately into Tefillah, which is Yemaisa Mashiach. So the Gemara says, Gewalt, but then comes Hashkivenu, and that's a hefsek, that's an interruption. So what's Hashkivenu? What's Hashkivenu? Hashkivenu is Gimel Tammuz, and all this darkness that happened since Gimel Tammuz. There's a time of Hashkivenu. What do we do by Hashkivenu? We're davening the Eibishter should watch us, watch over us, should be protect us. Oyev, Dever, V'cherev. You know that all the generations they daven for this period of time between Gimel Tammuz and tonight, the night of Mashiach coming momentarily, we've been davening for this time because it's a dangerous time. It's very dangerous for Chassidim, it's dangerous for the Jewish people, it's dangerous for the whole world. Because when there's no Rebbe Beguv Gashmi that we can see, there's a big problem. The defender of the Jewish people seems to be behind the curtains. That's why we see that the world went crazy. As soon as Chav Zayin Adar happened, the whole gang up against Mashiach, against Geula, all started, all the klippas got together right at that time. It's a very dangerous time. So we daven Hashkivenu, please the Eibush to protect. But the Gemara says that's a hefsek, that's an interruption. So the Gemara says, no. Even the Tikkun Elei Rabbanan Hashkivenu. Since the Hashkivenu was initially instituted by Rabbanan, meaning to say, when the Rebbe gave us that famous Sicha Chavches Nisan, the Rebbe said, listen here, Mashiach can come, but then I don't want to be the hero. I don't want it to be me. I want you guys to take the credit. That's why you're going to have to finish it. Now, I did everything I can, everything is done. The last step I need you to take. And the Rebbe says, I give it over to you. And Ashlamaz, look, what did we do? We gave it right back to him. And The Rebbe was hoping we would do it, but we didn't do it, so he had no choice. So he has to go into the background so that we're going to have no choice, because we're going to have to do something. Once the Inyan of Ashkivenu was planned out, the Gemara says, it's one long Geula period. It's not a separate time, Chas v'Shalom. It's not, the plan didn't work. The Rebbe's Basi Lagani kind of was, he thought, he wanted, he planned to be the 7th generation to bring the Shekhinah down. He almost got it, but we didn't deserve it. I don't know, whatever kind of explanations anybody can think of that is ridiculous. The Gemara says, Hashkivenu ki geula arichtedami. It's one long geula. This is not it's not disconnected, it's not separated. So then the Gemara continues. The Gemara says, in the end of Shemona Esrei, we say, Yil Ratzah Im Reifi. The Hegen Libi Lefanecha. So the Gemara says, how can we say Yil Ratzah and let my prayers be for goodwill? So the Gemara says, why do we say it after Shemona Esrei? Shouldn't we say it before we start Shemona Esrei? Yil Ratzah, the Eibush, to let my words be for favor in your eyes. So the Gemara says, no, just like David HaMelech said the pasuk Yil Ratzah in Tehillim, Yil Ratzah is a pasuk in Tehillim. Where? So the Gemara says it's after 18 kapitlach. David HaMelech said Yil Ratzah after 18 kapitlach. Because he said Yil Ratzah after 18 kapitlach, therefore we also say Yil Ratzah after Shemona Esrei, after 18 brachos. Fine. Now here's typical Gemara. The Gemara says it's not after 18 kapitlach, it's after 19 kapitlach. I love it. It's 19, because the pasuk Yil Ratzah is in the end of Yud Tes, not in the end of Yud Ches. So the Gemara says no. Kapitel Aleph and Kapitel Beis are really one kapitel. Perek Aleph in Tehillim, Ashrei Yoish, Ashalei Holach Batzas Rishayim. And the second kapitel, Lama Rak Shugoyim, it's one kapitel, it's not two kapitlach. Okay, how do you know? How do you know it's one kapitel? So the Gemara gives two things. I'm going to skip the first thing, but I'll get to the second thing. The Gemara says, it's one kapitel because, I think he brings from Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, from someone, that every perek that David HaMelech loved, that he was mechaviv, he started with Ashrei and he ends with Ashrei. So Kapitel Aleph begins with Ashrei Yoish, fortunate is the man, and Kapitel Beis ends with the pasuk, Ashrei kol choisei boi, fortunate are those who trust in him. So it starts with Ashrei and it ends with Ashrei. So you got the same weird Gemara. Is it one or is it two? If it's so why is it two? Why does it appear like two? If it's really one, why is it two? But if it's Ashrei kol choisei boi, then it's really one. So what does it mean? So these two kapitlos correspond to the first bracha Goyal Yisrael and the second bracha Hashkivenu. It's the same split. Because what's the first bracha? Ashrei Yoish. David HaMelech is saying, Ashrei Yoish, fortunate is the person. Who's he praising? Who's he talking about? The person who did not walk in the ways of the wicked. Who is that person? That person is the ultimate human being. That person is David HaMelech is Malchus. Who's he speaking about? It's not Tchilas and B'Seifan. As he starts the Tehillim, he's speaking it. His descendant. He's speaking to the final. That's the one who's loy halach b'tzas rishayim. What does that tzas rishayim mean? Didn't go in the way. I think it's possible to say that it's the spiritual war that happens right before Mashiach comes against Mashiach. When did it take place? This whole gang up against the Eibishter, against the Jewish people, started about the time when the Rebbe had a stroke. When the Rebbe had his 2 strokes, that's when they made the Oslo Accords. That's when they started this whole business of trying to rip up Eretz Yisrael. That's when they started this whole business of BDS, global terrorism, all this chazarai, all this fight against the Eibishter, this whole war to eradicate the Eibishter's name. The Rebbe speaks about it in Tafshin Nun Aleph, the Tafshin Nun Beis, and Shabbos Bereshis. I think Tafshin Nun Beis, Shabbos Bereshis. The Rebbe is talking over there that even though we're seeing so many Simanei Agiyula, we're also seeing the opposite. Not only are they beginning, the Rebbe says such a strange thing. Till now they never mentioned Yerushalayim. They used to speak about Yehuda Shamron. Now they have a chutzpah. The Rebbe says that they're chas v'shalom. They want to go against Yerushalayim. The Rebbe says it's not going to happen. Why? The Rebbe quotes the second parak in Tehillim, Yoshib Hashemayim Yitzchak, the Eibishter is going to laugh at them. Which the Eibishter's laughter was Donald Trump. Completely. They thought they're there. They thought they were popping their champagne bottles already. It was like at that last second. They were so there. She had an emanation already. They look for the klippa. They were so at that place, and the Ebershter gave him and he laughed at them because they were laughter. The whole thing, the whole thing completely got shredded. So what happens? Why then? Because Chazal tell us that when Aaron HaKohen passed away, what did Amalek do? Since there's no more Anani HaKohen, they felt they can come fight. They thought, I don't know if the people down here, but the spiritual powers of darkness thought that since the Rebbe is not here anymore defending the Jewish people, they can get away with it and fight the Rebbe right then. But they didn't realize that he's a warrior, he's going to fight them even though they don't see him. So what happens? That's the second period. So Lama Rak Shu Goyim is that same Hashkivenu period. It's during that time. So the Gemara says, don't make the mistake. Don't think it's 2 periods and 2 kapitlich. It's not. It looks like 2 kapitlich. You see, just like Hashkivenu looks like a separate bracha. It's 1 kapitel, just like we say it's Geula Arichte. It's 1 long Geula. How do you know? Because it starts with Ashrei and it ends with Ashrei. What does that mean? Ashrei kol chayisig boy. Fortunate are all those who trust in him, who knew that the Rebbe couldn't tell them a story and then chas v'shalom cap out. Lead us to the threshold of the Geula, and then the Rebbe says goodbye. Take care of yourself. Doesn't make any sense. So those who know Ashrei kol chayisig boy, those who trust in him, that he wouldn't tell us stories if it wasn't absolutely true. So those who trust in him, it's 1 kapitel, nothing changed. It's concealment, it's darkness, yeah, it looks like we don't know where he is. I understand, it's a good question, and it makes sense, and we scream out Masai every day. But the chas v'shalom doubt, the v'shaleach, the doubt, the message, that all the work is done, the only thing we need to do is be makabel p'nei Mashiach tzedkeinu, teach the world about Mashiach, that's absolute emes. We can't change that. So that's what the Gemara says, it's 1 thing. So watch this. So the Gemara says over there that anybody that's masmich geula l'tfila will not be damaged. Yeah, it's amazing Gemara. The Gemara says anybody that's soymich geula l'tfila will not have a hezek. That day will not be damaged. So the Gemara says, comes Reb Zera, and Reb Zera says, what are you talking about? I did it and I was damaged. It's a good question. He's not embarrassed, Reb Zera, he's honest. He said, I was soymich geula l'tfila, I incurred a loss. So the Gemara asks Rav Zayda, what did you do? What was your loss? So Rav Zayda says, I lost money. Because I had to go and give there was the king, they had to give him hadassim. It was some kind of a fine. He had to go give myrtle branches. I guess there was a lot of myrtle branches. There was a significant amount of money, and he lost a lot of them, and he had to pay off. So the Gemara says, that's a damage? That you had to go to the king and pay? That's not a damage, that's a good thing. Why? Because the Gemara says that a person should always go try to see a king, even a Gentile king, so that when you will see Mashiach Tzidkeinu, hear an amazing thing? You should try to see any kind of a king, so when you're going to see Mashiach Tzidkeinu, the glory of Mashiach, you can understand the difference between monarchy and monarchy, between a real king and between a Jewish king, between the ultimate king and the other kings. That's what the Gemara says. Strange story. So what's the deeper interpretation? Again, these are all my interpretations. I showed this to Rabbi Naftali Yistum. He says, "Du makes land in Asach Gemara." So what's happening? See, Reb Zayda means, what do we learn in Chassidus all the time? Rabbi and Reb Zayda, when they had a Sudas Purim, what does Zayda mean? Zayda means small. Klein. Klein means like this. In front of the Lakus, even if you're the brightest and most brilliant mind, you can be Einstein. You can be a brilliant mind, the genius of a genius. In front of the Eibishter, everybody is small. Reb Zera means people that can't get out of their heads. People that are stuck in their mind. So if things don't make sense in their mind, they can't fathom it. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand. So Reb Zera comes and Reb Zera says, Reb Zera is Moichin de Kapnos. Doesn't mean people that are not smart. It means that compared to emes, that's absolute truth. It doesn't have to make sense. What's true is true, not because it fits into your seichel. Comes Reb Zera and Reb Zera says, the Gemara says, if you're masmech geula to tefillah, which means if you realize that Hashkivenu is not Hashkivenu and nothing changed on Gimel Tammuz, and really the whole process of Geula did not get derailed, and Mashiach is coming and the Rebbe is leading the way to the Geula and nothing changed, that means you're taking Geula and you're connecting it to Tefillah and you're not being Goyres Hashkivenu as like a major thing in your life that changed everything. So the Gemara says you won't be damaged. Because there are a lot of people who say that what? That if you say this, it's going to harm your Chabad house. It's going to harm you. You can't say this. It's wilde things. People will be turned off. People will say Lubavitchers are lunatics. Don't say it. So the Gemara says, you won't have a damage. You won't have a damage. Comes Reb Zayn, and Reb Zayn says, I was damaged. What are you telling me? I lost 3 people. They stopped coming to my Chabad house because I say things that they couldn't fathom. I lost money. So the Gemara says that's damage. If this is what's going to allow you to see Melech HaMashiach, because this is a damage. It's not a damage. Where does the Gemara say all of this? Brachas Tav Tes Amud Beis. What's the significance? What's brachas? Bracha means a hamshacha from the Eibishter. What's the hamshacha from the Eibishter into the world? Our Rabbeim. That's a bracha. The Rebbes are a bracha, hamshacha of Elokus into the world. Especially Masechtas Brachas, because in Masechtas Brachas itself, what does it start? What does Masechtas Brachas start with? Me'emasai koyren Shema ba'arvis. When do you read Shema? At night. What does that mean, reading Shema at night? Nighttime represents Golus. Reading Shema at night means to experience Hashem Echad, Achdus Havaya, even in the darkness of Golus. Who began to reveal Echad, the ultimate meaning, the truth of Einoid Milvada in the world? Where did Me'emasai Koyren Shema Ba'arvin begin? Who started this? That's the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov is Daf, the first Daf. And the Mizritcha Magid is the second Daf of Masechtas Brachos. And the Alter Rebbe is the third. Then we get the Daf Tes. How are you going to say, oh, hold it? It doesn't start with Aleph, it starts with Beis. Everybody knows Gemara doesn't start with Aleph. Yeah, because the Rebbe and the Friedrich Rebbe are one. It's one Asius, Yisoid and Malchus. Today in the Loimus Parshin, these two are always unified. They don't separate even for a second. So the Ches and really what's Ches is Tes, it's really one. And what's Daf Tes Amud Beis? And what's the bottom of the page? This is all on the bottom of the page of Daf Tes Amud Beis. It's referring to which time? Which time is that referring to? Our time. The end time of our Rebbe's Nesius, meaning the last period. So the Gemara is actually telling you everything about this time. There's going to be a Hashkivenu, and Smichas Gula Litzvila, and Lama Rak Shogoyim, and it's all one kapitel, Venish the Spol. You're not going to be damaged. It's amazing. Chaim Yidden, but it's not just Titus, Chevra. It's not cute little Titus, even though maybe it is cute, but it's not. This is true because it's true, not because I found a little Gemara in it that I don't have another pshat in the Gemara. I don't know if anybody has a better pshat. You can tell me a better pshat. What does the Gemara mean? Hashkivenu. I looked in the Mefarshim. What does Hashkivenu have to do with Geula? When Mashiach is coming, you go to sleep. What's Hashkivenu? What's even the remote connection of Hashkivenu and Geula? I don't know. The Chassidish pshat makes sense. In any case, this is Emes. Why am I speaking about this? Because we got to get rid of, as I mentioned earlier, Golositis. Finish. We have to get ourselves back to the Amunah. There's nothing more powerful. Chabad, let's understand something. Chabad was never meant to go away from the Baal Shem Tov's simple Amunah. The Chiddush of Chabad is that even that which is beyond Seichel, you can't understand, you should understand it also with your Seichel. But not Chas v'Sholem that the Seichel becomes a barometer on what's true and what's not true. Truth is what Torah says. Truth is what the Rebbe said. That's emes, that's truth. We can't become such Chabadnikim that we allow Chas v'Shalom, our moichen, things that we don't understand, to dictate that this is real and this is not real. We can't change one word of the Rebbe's Sichos. And we're not dealing over here with one word. We're dealing with the Rebbe's last few years. Constant. And it's not even only the last. If you go to Basi Legani, you see from the beginning of Basi Legani what the Rebbe said his job is. It's so clear. The Rebbe is not a post-Holocaust Renaissance. What do you mean a post-Holocaust Renaissance? Oh, the Lubavitcher Rebbe is such a revolutionary, brought nice ideas to the Jewish people, and Guy weiter. And now what? Now we write Panim, and we get the Drachis, and Guy sich weiter. And then I heard a big speaker saying, oh, and today everybody's a Rebbe. Very good. Okay, very good. I don't know, it doesn't speak to me. It's happened everything the Rebbe said from the beginning. The whole Baal Shem Tov, the whole thing was 9 generations to bring the Geula, to finish the job. So today's days, you don't have to have just, today you can actually see it. Today we can see it with our own eyes, how Geula is materialized, and how the Rebbe is behind everything. It's not stam that they're happening. If only more Lubavitchers would talk, would speak, would say this in the world. People are willing to hear, as long as we're obviously explaining things, not stam shouting slogans, but when we explain things. And we learn, but in order to explain, we need to learn ourselves. We need to learn and understand, and see what the Rebbe said, see what Geula is. The world doesn't know what Geula is. People are living with the fantasy of a white donkey coming into town and the Mashiach coming with whatever. The Rebbe taught us for 40 years. The Rebbe taught us Sicha after Sicha to appreciate the idea that Geula is in the world, from within the world transforms. The nevuos of the Geula don't necessarily have to be miracles, some of them. They're just, the world becomes a godly place. The world, Madana Mitzuyim Ka'afar, doesn't have to be a miracle from above, that man falls from Shemayim, gold and silver falls from Shemayim. We reach a time when the world is able to produce so much that there is plenty for everybody. That's what the Rebbe taught us. The Rebbe taught us that it's all a process, an elevation, a purification, and so it is with nevuos after nevuos. There's a fellow, Mendy Reuven from Poway. Great, he's done a whole video presentation where he shows every single one of the nevuos, that so many of them that are stated they're going to be when Mashiach comes. He shows how they're actually now a reality. It says the deaf are going to hear. And then he shows, he says that there was his brother-in-law, whatever, bought a yeshiva. The building that they're using was on foreclosure, and they got it for very cheap. Why? It was a school for the deaf. They went out of business because they put in already implants that the deaf could hear. So why is that not the fulfillment of the nevuah that the deaf will hear? Why does it have to be? This is the miracle. But it's nature. The world has become godlier. You ever see the video of the little baby? A little child, 2-year-old, and the mother, and your mom should start crying when you won't hear it. And the baby hears for the first time, and the baby gets overwhelmed with emotion that it can hear its mother talking. But that's nature. Nature has been elevated to Mashiach already. And so thing after thing. You have people who literally, don't have feet. And they walk with whatever they call it, prosthetics, I think. You would never know. They can run upstairs, unbelievable. It's amazing. It can sense even what they want to do. It's crazy. And that's what it says in the Pasuk. What's the Lashon over there? Piseach, Yedaleg, it will jump, it will leap like a... These things are happening. This is normal. But in Borough Park and Williamsburg and in Lakewood, to them it's the strangest thing because it doesn't. To them, you need to have miracles. The Mashiach is a guy with a donkey. So that's why we need to teach Chassidus. That's why we need to get out. We need all these teachings we're teaching that we can share it with the world, so everybody can understand the process. And then you don't even have to tell them who Mashiach is, because then they'll figure it out on their own. You see it, you understand it. There cannot be anybody else. This is the whole. This is everything points to this reality. It happened exactly a year ago tonight. This story happened to me a year ago tonight. Say whatever you want, but it's a crazy story. I'm opening up to try to get you something that I can read it to you. It's really, really something out of this world. Just give me a second.
Remember when smartphones first came out?
Oh, yeah.
Sir, don't now we'll take it up a break. Hold on, wait, let me see what I can get here. Let me see, just give me a second, hold on.
At least in that back way, I got a bar. They have those.
Okay, I'll start and then I'll find it. So Baruch Hashem, in order to make sure that the Geula is going to come, and we're not going to chas v'shalom fall into despair and darkness, the Eibishter gave us not just men, but He gave us women. And women, it says, b'schus nashim tzidkaniyas, the Geula is going to come. They're going to lead the way. That's P'payil Mamish. Women have a greater capacity for emunah than men do, just rooted in their neshama in a deeper way. That's why Yiddishkeit is dependent on a Jewish mother, not on a Jewish father. The Rebbe explains, because of a mother. Dafka taka, because the Indian of emunah is stronger by a woman. So there is women, especially this one woman in Los Angeles that got very, very determined, I should say. But keine action does not bring in Mashiach, and there's nothing we can do. And she's a very, hold on. She's an intelligent woman. Hold on, let me just shut this. She's an intelligent person, a good. I'm saying not a meshugana, a very thorough, good person, and it's about the same time that I was beginning to koch hazeh and Mashiach. So last year, before Yud Shvat, she goes into hyper mode before Yud Aleph Nisan, before Yud Shvat. These are her times that she drives me nuts, totally Mashiach. What I need to do, this and that, we have to get this, we have to get this, we have to get the ball on the road. She wanted that last year before Yud Shvat, there should be a strong campaign. The Rebbe says, and the Rebbe says, Makabel Zayin Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. I know there's a lot of Perushim amongst Chassidim. Ein Mikra Yoytz Medei Pshutai, simply Kabbalah Samalchus. Shas Mais and Tafshin Nun Aleph. The Rebbe gave a lot of encouragement to the various different Kabbalah Samalchus. I'm not going to go into the whole history of it. People were signing their name on a document, accepting upon themselves Malchusay Shel HaRebbe as Melech HaMashiach. There were many answers from the Rebbe: Shuas Chein, Zman Gerama, many things. So she decided last year that before Yud Shvat we should make a campaign for Kabbalah Samalchus. I was very uncomfortable. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to. She already before the Shoshana, but that was already different. She made an event. She did it in my shul with women that are shaykh to it. We had before the Shoshana, we had a big thing, and I spoke. And it was a very big. It was a real royal event. It was made beautifully, and it was a moment of Kabbalah Samalchus. But that's one thing. It's not getting on YouTube. It's not going out there. It's quiet. They're civil. I don't want to be the new Meshuggah in town who's going to running around with petitions that everybody should sign Kabbalah Samalchus. I was very uncomfortable. I didn't want to do it. But the Greta Cup, she made me so nuts, and somehow she got me to be masking. Made me feel a little guilty. And I said, okay, even though I'm uncomfortable, maybe I have to do what I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to bring Mashiach. Maybe we need to do things that are uncomfortable. So the idea was that we're going to make a petition, online petition. It's going to be easy to sign. You can get to thousands of people. Send out this petition. And you do an online petition. You just push the thing and you sign your name online on your phone, send it, and hopefully we can collect thousands of signatures. We can bring it to the Rebbe and Azaydos. How are you going to get people to do it? So the point was that I was going to do an inspirational video for that. So tonight, a year ago, literally the first night of Yud Shvat, I was going to be, no, maybe it was the night before, maybe it was Test Shvat, maybe it was last night, I don't remember. Yeah, it was last night. No. It was actually the night of Yud Shvat. I was going to be filmed. We were going to have a photographer that was coming, was going to film me. And I prepared already in my mind what I'm going to say. It needed to be a very sharp message, a very strong message, sharp. What's the basis al pitayra for this? Is this dumb craziness? You can't just do crazy things. What's the basis? Bikshu Esalekayim is David Malcolm. There's an Indian that says in the Navi that at the end of days, after Yidden are going to return to Eretz Yisrael already, so on and so forth, they're going to request David HaMelech, they're going to request, and the Mitzudei says, it means that they're going to come to Moshiach, they're going to come, and they're going to ask of him, Shehu Yimloich. It's not only going to ask the Eibishter, they're going to ask from Moshiach that he should be Melech on them. That's the idea of a Kabbalah Samalchus. And Rashi brings over there that the three things that the Yidden rejected. In the days of Rechavam, Yidden rejected three things. And the Eibishter is not ein mara siman tov Yisrael. The Eibishter will not show a siman tov Yisrael until the Yidden are going to ask back for these three things. They're going to ask for the Beis Hamikdash. They're going to ask for the Eibishter's Malchus, or they want the Eibishter back, and they're going to ask for Malchus Beis David. That's what Rashi says. Anyways, okay, so I'm about, I think the photographer was going to come in a little while, and I was in my shul, and I suddenly got goosebumps, or rather I got butterflies in my stomach, and I said, you're a total nutcase, you're a total lunatic, you're a meshuggah. Why are you doing this? You put yourself out there enough, you can be machabed someone else with this kibbut. It's okay to be a little normal left in this world, this little amal. You don't have to do this. I was scared, I don't know. All I need is this should go out on the street, people are going to start putting out things, Wolf is going crazy, I don't know, suddenly the rabbis in Los Angeles might put out something. I don't know who's going to find out about this, who's going to think this is crazy. I got scared. So I don't know, should I do it, should I not do it, should I do it? I feel I have to ask. And I don't know, it's not something I can ask the Arav who I'm asking. Arav I'm asking, it's not a question for that. I need to ask. Usually I ask the Rebbe a lot of things, but I didn't feel that this is an appropriate question to ask the Rebbe. You can ask the Rebbe, should we crown you? It's like coming to the Rebbe before you Shvat and say, Rebbe, should we give you a Ksavas Kashrus? Do you like it? It's so distasteful, you don't do that. So now I was thinking, because I can't ask the Rebbe, who am I going to ask? I thought I should ask the Alter Rebbe. I don't know. How do you ask the Alter Rebbe? The same way you ask the Rebbe. You open up the Alter Rebbe Sefer. I said, you can't ask the Alter Rebbe because the Alter Rebbe is the same family. Again, this is a very fast thought that came into my head. It's the same family. You can't, it's not. A weird thought fell into my head out of nowhere. Again, it said, ask the Barditchever. It's like the Barditchever. Why the Barditchever? In my head, three reasons came in why I should ask the Barditchever. Reason number one, the Barditchever loves Jews. And he can't stand Gullus. He's one of the Yidden that's supposed to be Yidden. And he's a good person to ask about doing something that can hopefully break this stubborn exile. Number two, the Barditchev is good friends with the Alter Rebbe, so it's Beis Harav, he's very, very close. And number three, I know the Barditchev works the system of opening books. You have to know, not everybody works it. The Rebbe we know works answers through letters. Because there are hundreds of thousands of stories that people have crazy stories with the Rebbe's answers. So we know the Rebbe works that way. How do I know that other tzaddik? But the Barditchev does, because we know that when the Alter Rebbe was in jail, the Alter Rebbe sent a message to Barditchev. The Alter Rebbe sent a chassid to be masker. The Barditchev opened up a chumash and it said, "Vayar Yaakov ki yashever b'Mitzrayim." Yaakov saw that there is shever b'Mitzrayim. Shever, the Barditchev said, is Shnei ben Rivka. That's it. So I said, here's my man. The Barditchev does work through the system. Let me try. again, and I was panicking. It wasn't like I was kidding around. I was really in a panic mode. I was scared and worried and didn't want to do it. So I walked over. I know I'm going to do it if I need to. So I walked back in. This was like in the kitchen of my shul. I ran. When you're nervous, you go eat. So that's what I did. I went to the kitchen to look and open the refrigerator to see what I can find some pickles there from Shabbos or whatever. And then I thought about the Berditchevis. I ran back into the shul. And a few weeks before that, I bought a new set of Kedushas Levi. Kedushas Levi is a sefer of Levi Yitzchak. And it was today's days. They make these. In Eretz Yisrael, they're redoing all the Chassidish Svarim with really, really geschmack. They did Bnei Saschar they've done, and the Kedushas Levi, and all the Svarim. Today it's made so accessible. It's really geschmack. So I like those Svarim. So I bought. So I walk over and I'm trembling. Literally, I'm trembling. I'm saying, and I said, Levi Yitzchak, I need your help now. I'm at a crossroad. And I need you, no kunsten over here. I need a very clear answer. I don't want to have to read in this. I need yeah or no. This is my question. Yeah or no? And I open up. I don't write anything. I just open up randomly. I almost fainted. I definitely cried when I read it. It's a shame I don't have it in front of me right now. It wasn't like I looked in this, but some people, they open up the Rebbe's letters, they look to the page that they find a good answer that they like. Like they look at 3, I like what people tell me. Yeah, you can look 3 pages before and 3 pages. Who made up these rules? Yeah, 3 pages before and 3 pages. I don't know. Some people are strange. But in any case, I'm also strange. Anyways, I'm opening up, but here's what I read. I go right to this paragraph. He's Parshas Vayetze. You can look it up. He's talking by these words. He's talking about Leah naming Yehuda. So why did Leah name Yehuda? Because Leah at that time was Oivedas Hashem Yisbarach. She was serving the Eibush to B'midas HaMalchus. With the attribute of King. Malchus means you give yourself over completely to the Melech. How do you give yourself over completely to the Melech? When you realize that you belong to the Melech, that the Melech owns your life. Everything you have comes from him. Then you can give yourself over completely to the Melech. So at that time, Leah was thanking the Eibishter, recognizing Shakol, Hashpaz, V'habrachas, all comes from the Eibishter. Lefikach, hear these words, Zacha, she was Zaycha, Lahamshich, Lahaben Hanoyled La, to be Mamshich to her son that was being born, Hashpa, Midas HaMalchus, a Hashpa of Malchus, Ulefikach, and therefore, Ha Yehuda Melech, V'David u'Shloima ha'yamot Melech, and David and Shloima. At Chamisha Asar Doiris of Malachim were Malachim. U'Melech HaMoshiach will also be a Melech, because Leah was a Mamshech. She downloaded Amshacha of Malchus. I'm standing there and I'm asking the Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, should I start a campaign to try to stimulate a download of Midas HaMalchus, to evoke within Melech HaMoshiach the desire to be a Melech by people signing a petition and saying, you're the Melech. And I got this. This is what I read. Again, not 3 lines before, not 3 lines after, these words. So now I have to be a super apikoides to ignore this. So I say, okay, I give up. I asked. No one asked you to ask. You asked, you got an answer, here you go. So I did it. We made the video, then we were busy for 24 hours with this video because this for her it wasn't good enough. Here I didn't smile enough, here I looked too serious, here I was this, and we had to change it and make it and do it, and here whatever. Until we got this video, and it was frustrating me so much because by the time she sent it out, it was already after your Shvat. I figured I'm going to get the momentum of your Shvat. She wanted it so perfect. I was like, gedreht cup until we got this video out. Anyways, sent the petition, also with the nusach of the petition, this nusach, that nusach, she's so exact, everything has to be exactly, ahead. So we got the nusach, we sent it out, and I was expecting that it would go viral, hopefully, and we would get thousands of signatures, Allah and Kab. It didn't happen. What happened was, we got a few hundred signatures, I'm not going to say, and that night I flew to Chicago. The next day I was going to speak in Chicago. So I landed in Chicago, it was an overnight flight. I'm sitting in the morning and I'm depressed. Thinking, here we did this petition, and my whole thing was, we're going to get thousands, I say on the thing, we're going to get thousands of signatures, we're going to bring it to the Rebbe, we're going to bring it, just to cover all the bases, we're going to bring it to the oil, we're going to bring it to 770, we're going to bring it everywhere. And we're going to make sure. And I was hoping, and then a few more days, it's going to be by 10,000 signatures, and a few more days it might be by, because online, this thing can spread like crazy. What does it take? Everybody will sign. I explain, it should be serious, put on a gartel, go to the mikveh. Though there's not a joke. You're seriously accepting upon yourself. Fine. I'm sitting there in shul, and I'm thinking, oh, this thing didn't work. Didn't work. Then I'm thinking to myself, maybe I gave myself too little time. You can't expect it. You have to create now short, little, cute little videos. It's, with music, with this, with that, with memes. Maybe there should be get a whole chevra that knows how to do these things, and let's make a whole campaign out of this. It should be really cool, and really thing, and then the people will be interested in this. So this is a whole operation. So let's do this. And I thought to myself, maybe we should give ourselves from Yud Shvat till Yud Aleph Nisan. Maybe from Yud Shvat till Yud Aleph Nisan, we should give ourselves to get this. Then I was thinking, yeah, now that's a cop-out. You made up, you're doing it Yud Shvat. Why are you giving yourself 3 months? So I walk out, again, these are my thoughts. I walk out of, hold on. I walk out of the, can anybody do me a favor? Please look quickly when Yud Shvat came out, the English date last year. Because I'm going to find you this. Yud Shvat last year, was it February, January? Look.
Anybody have a password for this room?
Go ahead. When was Yud Shvat last year?
February 15th.
Alexa.
February
So
15th.
when was Yud Shvat last year? Who took the mechitza down? Alexa's not here.
January 16th.
What is it?
January 16th.
January?
February.
February 16th. Oh, okay.
January 16th. And Machia, February. You ready for this
Stuff from the Farbrengen.
January 16th.
Machia, January 16th.
I remember it was cold back in Chicago.
Wait, no.
Which day?
January 16th.
January 16th? Last year.
January 16th.
Okay.
That's 18th.
So here we go. So there's a guy who's always sending me stuff, and I never pay attention. He always sends me WhatsApps. Usually he says something, this, that, and this time, I don't know why, I received this WhatsApp, and I listened to it. That's it. So again, I'm sitting there, I don't know what to do with myself anymore. So the Rebbe says, the Eibishter is about Rahman, and he gives you 3 months to get the job done. That's the last thing I wanted to hear, because I was thinking that, okay, I can already, I've done my job and finished, let someone else do this. Okay, what did I do about it? Nothing. And whatever, I was frustrated. I said, Rebbe, if you want someone else, I've done mine. I don't have credit for this. Fine. I was inspired to do, but I didn't do. That's the bottom line. I didn't like doing this, and fine. So what happens? Chav Hei Adar, there's a women's event in Crown Heights. They started making a lot of Geula events. Baruch Hashem, Mashiach is waking up in the world. That's to me a bigger proof than anything else. It's not that, this is happening. The fact that Yidden are becoming more Mashiach, that's more exciting than anything else. So, there was a big movement amongst the ladies last year, not Chabad. They made Geula gatherings across the whole world. It's very special. And from there came the inspiration for Lubavitcher women as well to make Gula gatherings. It happened afterwards. Anyways, so what happens? So in Crown Heights they had this big women's gathering on Chav Hei Adar, the Rebbitzins birthday. So they invited me to be the speaker. So I landed in New York at like 12 o'clock and I went straight to the oil. I wrote a poem and I come into the oil, standing outside, like in the outer room there where the candles are. And I see over there, I was debating if I should take a minor lashon or a tehillim. Lately I have a harder time saying about the Rebbe, about the Rebbe, about the Rebbe, that he should be in Gan Eden, and he should enjoy himself in Gan Eden. It doesn't fit well in... so I have a hard time saying minor lashon. So I said, you know what, let me say tehillim. I'm standing over there, and as I'm ready to take the thing, there's a volume of the Rebbe's letters. So I pull out the volume, and I open it up randomly. I don't even know why I did it. Again, I came there to go walk into the oil, but I opened. And the Rebbe says like this. I hear the Rebbe says, this that you write to me, that you're an Einikel of Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev. I'm not an Einikel, and that I know. Again, maybe I am, but I don't know. So the Rebbe says, hey, you should know that Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev was such a close friend to Beis Harav. Again, the reasoning I was thinking. And he says he was such a fighter for Chassidus. He was moise nefesh for Chassidus, like it's known his story. And he had the redifus, and he had all kinds of persecutions, and he wasn't nispol. So I hope you're also not going to, like you say, that you're not going to have a nispol for Allah Zach, and you're going to learn from Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev, and so on and so forth. That's the letter. So I'm thinking there, is he referring to this Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev story that I happened before? I'm thinking, I don't know. That's... usually if I feel a letter is for me, I right away take a picture. It kind of hit me, but then I said, and I closed it, and I didn't take a picture. I'm at the oil, I davened, then I come outside and there by the Rebbitzin. It wasn't such a good idea, because I never used to say the Rebbitzins kapitel. And I said the Rebbe's kapitel. But I figured it's her birthday, so I'm not going to be by her, I'm not going to say, I'm saying kapitel, and a kuf yotes. But once you say it the first day, so now, Chassidim are going to have to all say kuf yotes next year. Those who say the Rebbitzins kapitel say kuf yotes already this year. I got stuck with kuf yotes. I can't say I say it every day, but I try to say it almost all the time. In any case, Shine, I come next day, I spoke for the women. That's an interesting story, I'll tell you in a moment. I come back, actually it was a long trip. It was to there, and then I went to Toronto, and there was a speaking thing in Toronto. Then I came back to Los Angeles. I'm back in LA, and I say, I gotta find that letter. Where's that letter? I have to read the letter again. So I start looking everywhere it says, I looked in the Mafteches to find every time it mentions Rabbi Yitzchak, until I found that letter. And then I looked, just to be sure if this letter is for me. I noticed the date on the letter was Chav Hei Adar. It's exactly the night that I'm standing there. It's Chav Hei Adar. And the Rebbe is saying with the Ma'aseh with Rabbi Yitzchak. Kitzur HaMa'aseh, what happened was, before Yud Aleph Nisan, I reintroduced the campaign, and we got quite a lot more signatures, but I can't say that I was Yaitza at all, because Mashiach Tzidkenu wasn't here yet. But that's just an interesting story. And Chevra Medaf, we have to connect. I'm not saying that's the only way. I don't know what the way is. I just think that we need to do something. Azoi, to just keep things going, and us eating sushi is not. Sushi is good, and lately they're making better and better sushi, but that's not a.
How does he know it's getting better?
It doesn't work.
How does he know that it's getting better?
We have to get out of Golas, whatever there's one way. The Rebbe said everybody's going to do it else was he can't. So else. The Rebbe even said you should learn Pirkei Avos. Maybe that's else was he can't. Everything. So everybody's got to try, whatever you can come up with. You've got to do something. Chaim, the Rebbe says Tachlis of the entire world is the Moshe Mashiach. The Gilui of the Eibishter down here. And the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Lamed Zayin that Tolu b'Maseinu v'Avadiseinu kol zman meshech hagolos. And the Alter Rebbe explains why, because there's something called Klipas Noiga, and Klipas Noiga, once that's elevated, and the good of Noiga goes up, the bad of Noiga gets separated, what happens, the Alter Rebbe says, Yizbalu v'yizbaklu kol ha-klipas. Automatically, all the klipas will become nullified. Why? Because their entire yanika, their entire ability to receive energy, all the klipas, are only because they're receiving it from Kedusha. But they can't plug in directly in Kedusha, because Kedusha, they can't receive from Kedusha. The only way they can get is through the mamutza of Noiga. That's what the Alter Rebbe explains. Once we separate the good and bad of Noiga, then the good is nichlal in Kedusha, so there's no more outlet. They don't have anywhere to plug in anymore. So once their battery dies, klipas are done. That's what the Alter Rebbe explains in Perek Lamed Zayin and Tanya. So the Rebbe says, open your eyes. So I connected it with, you have to say that this bitter is very real. You have to start seeing in the world where klipas noiga is being disbarred, it's elevated, and then the Rav noiga loses its chayas. What a matter? You don't even have to do anything. You will die. So I connected it. Oh, I know why I connected it, because I saw in Tzemach Tzedek says that the 4 animals that are mentioned as non-kosher animals, the Gomel, the Arneves, and the Chazer, these are Sholosh Klipas Atmeis, and Chazer is Klipas Noiga. Even though Chazer we're now allowed to eat, it represents Klipas Noiga. That's why the Tzemach Tzedek says, Aset Chazer li Tor. That the Chazer is going to become Tor because Klipas Noiga is going to be elevated. That's what he brings. And then he says, and then the Tzemach Tzedek is Mekasherit, that Chazer, who's Chazer? Chazer is Malchus Edom. Because the 4 Goliaths represent those. So the 3 first Goliaths is Sholosh Klipas Atmeis. But Malchus Edom is going to have an aliyah. It's going to be elevated. And that's why we know that the last king of Edom is going to bring gifts to Melech HaMashiach. It's going to have a complete turnaround. He's going to become the biggest ally of holiness. So obviously, I'm not waiting for another king of Edom. I think we have our man already. Who's the last king of Edom, who's going to give the crown to Melech HaMashiach. Let's hope. And he doesn't need an extra 4 years. Let's hope he does it already now. And then the Rebbe will give him a reward. He can be president for but in any case...
And he gave the State of the Union address tonight.
Yes. You and Shvat, it's crazy stuff.
State of the Union, democracy.
I don't know. In any case, but head on my side. So I suddenly realized that America is kind of, was always a klipas noiga. They kind of always, during the Holocaust for instance, they were the ones who liberated the camps. They saved kind of the remnants of the Jewish people. But at the same time, they could have bombed the train tracks to Auschwitz, so they didn't do it. And then afterwards, when Eretz Yisrael needed help, they were the ones who gave all the arms and all the money and so forth. But they were always yeah and no, because then they would always tell them to stop. They always held them back. And then there were certain parts in the United States itself, for example, the State Department, which was deeply entrenched with the PLO. So there was always yeah and no. There was a psazah, klipas noiga, it was here and there, and sometimes the ra is going there, sometimes the toiv is going. It fluctuated back and forth, until we're seeing now. Suddenly there is a separation in America, complete separation, and there is an aliyah on one side becoming hugely supporters of Eretz Yisrael, and the president's unbelievable in his support. And not only that, he's choking the klipas. He basically took the PA, whatever, and he threw them out of Washington. He closed down their offices. He defunded UNRWA. And he's choking Iran. Literally choking. In other words, all these Pashat Pegashmias, this whole idea that it says in Tanya, that they receive their chayas through klipas noiga, till now America was supporting both sides. And now it's basically shutting them down. They're dying. They're losing all their energy. And he's putting in he's punishing every country that does business with them. They're at the verge of collapsing. So the teichen of what I was saying, this is Mamish Mashiach. You see it Pekashmias, how the toiv of noiga is being elevated, and the rest of it is falling. And then the Tzemach Tzedek actually adds over there that he asks the question, how can you say that klipas noiga? How can you say that klipas noiga is going to, that Esav is going to be elevated? The Gemara, the Medrash says that the Eibishter is going to be Makab. Mashiach is going to receive presents from everybody besides from Edom. Because they hurt the Jewish people more than anybody else. And the Eibishter is going to yell at them, get out of here. Ga'ar chayas kana. That's what it says in the pasuk. So the Tzemach Tzedek says, I don't understand. How does it fit with what we're saying over here? That Aset Chazer dafke l'Torah. Tzemach Tzedek leaves it with a tzarech il. The Rebbe brings this in the Sichos of Nun and Aleph, I don't remember where. The Rebbe brings this, I think Nun Aleph, by Yishlach. And the Rebbe brings the Tzemach Tzedek and the tzarech il. And the Rebbe gives an answer. The Rebbe says, Ulai, that Edom is going to be elevated when? After the Eibishter yells at it. Ga'ar chayas kana, after the Eibishter yells at it. What does it mean, Ga'ar chayas kana? So we learn in Basiligani, what does it mean the Eibishter yells at Edom? Is that he amputates its left leg. That's what it says. He amputates its left leg. Because the problem with kana is a kuf. It's got a long, the problem with, let me go back a story over here. It says that, we had this in Basiligani last year's Siv. What does it say? It says that when Shlomo Melech married Bas Paroi and he built the Beis Hamikdash, the Eibishter was very angry at Shlomo Melech. He was excited because Basi Lagani, but he was angry at Shlomo Melech that he married Bas Paroi. So what did he do? He sent Malach Gabriel out. The Malach Gabriel stuck a kaneh, he stuck a reed off the coast of the Mediterranean, and that kind of started gathering sand, and that became, on there they built, what does it say? Krach Gadol Shel Raimi, which destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. So the whole thing is standing on a reed. And that's, the Rebbe explains, is the kuf, the bottom long leg of the kuf. That's the root of the evil of Edom. So the Rebbe says in the Maimer, when you cut off and you amputate the bottom of the left leg, then what happens? It becomes a hay. And from the word kaneh, it becomes hine. Hine is Gilead Lukus. Hine, the Rebbe always says, hine Moshiach ba. So after you slice off the left, the bottom, not the whole left, the bottom of it. And then I'm looking, is it that, the Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe says, when do you know Mashiach is going to come? How do you know Mashiach is here? The Alter Rebbe says, you're going to read it in the newspaper. When you read Chassidus and you read the newspaper and you see the same story, you know it's Mashiach. So what are you seeing? For the first time in American history, the left has gone completely wacko. Completely. If there had been anybody that severed themselves, the first time in history that the candidates didn't even show up to AIPAC. I mean, it was like everybody knows, if you want to win the election, if you want the Jewish money and the Jewish vote, you got to go to AIPAC. And they didn't even come. Besides Pelosi and Schumer, okay, but everybody else, but they're not running for president. They didn't arrive. In other words, there's such a hatred, there's such a clear identification with Palestinian, with anything that's anti-Israel, with BDS. It's scary. So this is, what does it say? Edom is going to be elevated after the left leg is going to be pushed away. By the way, you see the makas that are getting last night. You heard what happened? So they starting their caucuses, their thing. They couldn't even figure out who won. And the fact that you see it happening as soon as they're starting already their momentous campaign where they're going to dethrone the king. Right? They're fine. They tried everything. They tried already the collusion. They tried already the impeachment. It's all not working. They have no data. The last thing they're going to try is to try to beat them in the thing. But they started off with such a shameful beginning. Like right at the beginning. It's almost like the makis that happened in Mitzrayim. Then it was Tzvardeya, and here is that the app crashes. But whatever it is, it's just not working out for them. And the worst thing is that he knows how to poke fun of them every time this happens. I think he gives us it's amazing. The whole thing is so unbelievable. So, but back to what I'm saying. So, I'm saying, I'm reading Tanya, and this is mamish what's happening. It's unbelievable. So I said this whole thing in this talk about us at Chazer V'Tod, and then I left. What? What? Oh, the Rebbe says after.
No, but how did it translate the Rambam? You're saying that when the left is leaving, then it's...
Yeah, it seems like once they're severing themselves completely from the thing, then the Eibishter is inviting Klipas Nagin to Kedusha. That's what it seems like. You see in America, you see millions and millions and millions of people that have. I'm saying they're still evangelists. They didn't drop their emunah, but they're the biggest support for the Jewish people, and they're not far from knowing the evidence once Mashiach Tzidkenu reveals himself. It's not the old Christians that have a deep hatred to the Jewish people. It's a whole different story. There's this mamish part of Oza Hapach El Ha'am himself in Beruda. The Eibush is literally converting the nations. The Eibush is converting the Muslim world. The first time they're making deals with Eretz Yisrael, not that they realize they need Eretz Yisrael. All the Gulf states, millions of Arabs. This is mamish. Whoever believed this would happen? And now the African countries are all making, what do they call it? No, they're making ties. What do they call it? Diplomatic relations. This is a new thing that has never happened. It's unbelievable. Akapanim. So I give this over, and I was, I can't say like I talk a little too long. And in a big event like this, there's 1,000 ladies in the room, so you have to keep their attention. But there's only about a half an hour, so I was planning to take some more hayras ba'avodah, to bring it into practical avodah, what we have to do, but I didn't have time. And it kind of ended just with this whole political situation. So I left and I was feeling really bad. I felt that you have 1,000 people in the room, and okay, I was very geschmack. I explained something in Chassidus and something that's happening in the world. Open up your eyes. We realize Mashiach is happening in front of our eyes. But it bothered me. I just didn't feel good about this. So I went home. I walked home. I don't live in Crown Heights, but my sister lives there. I walk in, and in this frustration, again, I just walk over to the letters that are there, and I opened it up randomly. This is great. The Rebbe says to someone, I'm glad to hear that you're learning Tanya, you get to share Tanya, so on and so forth. And this that you write to me, the Rebbe says, that now you feel that you have to stop. Because you're holding by Perek Lamed Hey, and the Inyanim are becoming very deep, and therefore you feel that you can't, it's too hard for you to teach and to continue. So the Rebbe says it would be Kedai that you should continue until after Perek Lamed Zayin in Tanya. Because these are very fundamental Inyanim. The Rebbe doesn't say in Perek Lamed, but Perek Lamed Zayin. The entire talk was Perek Lamed Zayin. So it means, Chassidus explains, it means Limud HaTorah v'Kabbalah Yisrael. Because Limud HaTorah you can learn just out of a hobby. Limud HaTorah you can learn just because of the intellectual stimulation that it gives you. Rambam is Ulay Shel Torah. Because, if you're a Baki B'Shas and you know all the sugyas, then you can enjoy Rambam. But if you don't, you're just learning it at the halacha end without all the background. Sometimes it's dry and difficult, but it's a yoke. It's a yoke. There's 3 braken, there's a yoke of Torah. And I remember seeing in the Maimah from the Mikla, a whole beer, I forgot already. Why Bias on Mashiach is dafke totally in Ulay Shel Torah. So in the Maimah, I'll touch it as Mayav. Very, very fascinating thing. I forgot already what it says there, but something like that. There's a famous Maimah from the Mikla Rebbe called Atotzeres Mayav. The Mikla Rebbe said that Maimah in front of Rebbe Kiva Eger. And the Mikla Rebbe himself writes that Rebbe Kiva Eger was a little bit, it was too much for him. The Mikla Rebbe writes that Rebbe Kiva was, too much, but he was very mispoiled. It's interesting because if you look at the Maimah Atotzeres Mayav, it's one of the Mikla Rebbe's memorim, the Mikla Rebbe's style. It's like 50 pages long. I'm surprised that Rebbe Kiva Eger sat through. If you know in Chassidus, you have to have Rebbe Kiva Eger was not like can't Kabbalah Eichet, but his Ikri was in Baliba, obviously. I have to remember the Lashon that the Mikla Rebbe writes about. And he writes such big things about Rebbe Kiva Eger. He writes how he met him and how a special person. He asked the Rebbe a question regarding the Parshias in the Torah. In the end of every parsha, if you look at the Torah, at the end of every parsha, it says how many psukim there are in that parsha. And it gives a siman. It gives a siman how many psukim there is in that parsha. Usually the siman is a word of a malach. Let's say, I think Parshas Ve'edo is 101 psukim, so the siman is Michael. So on and so forth. So he says you look through all of Chumash you have in each parsha. The only parsha it doesn't have is in Parshas Pekudei. Now if you look at the modern Chumash, even the Chabad Chumash today, it has already because of this letter. But initially it didn't have. Many Chumash didn't have a siman on Parshas Pekudei. So he asked the Rebbe, how come Parshas Pekudei is the only parsha that doesn't say? So the Rebbe answers him, and I think the Rebbe writes kind of more like B'derech. The Rebbe doesn't say B'derech Tzachis. I forgot what the Rebbe like. Kind of a lighter answer. The Rebbe says that really could be there was a siman. The siman, Parshas Pekudei has 92 psukim. So the siman that was there was the word, 2 words, Beli Kol. Beli is 42. Kol is 50. So it was written there, Beli Kol, Siman. That the Siman is 42 and 50 is 92. Siman, that's the Siman. But the Rebbe says, like if was there the Bacher the typesetter, he saw it, and he read it, and he called Siman. There's no Siman. So he decided, why do I have to write Beli Kol? Why do I have to write Beli Kol Siman? There is no Siman. Let me just not write anything. There's no Siman. There is no Siman. You have to write that there is no Siman. It's a brilliant. This is so brilliant. You know, it says that Shlomo Melech was a chacham mikol afilu min atipshim. That Shlomo Melech was, that means the ultimate genius is someone who can figure out the mind of a tippish. So the Rebbe is able to go into the mind of this guy who reads it like a Beli Kol Siman, that there is no Siman. Instead of realizing that Beli Kol, Siman is the Siman. Fine. So I remember I used to be a teacher, 4th grade for many years. Not Chabad Yeshiva. And I remember reading it was Parshas Pekudei, and I got very excited, and I went outside to the Rebbe's room, where the Malamdim, other Malamdim were, and I showed one or two, and I said, oh, this is genius. They were the spell. I'm like, wow. I go back, and it was recess, and I'm sitting there, kids are out, and suddenly I got goosebumps. I felt, oh my. The Rebbe is saying something much more than it seems like over here, something very frightening. When the Rebbe had his stroke, the first stroke, Chav Zayin Adar, the last time the Rebbe spoke was Parshas Vayakel. Parshas Pekudei, there was no Farbrengen. It was the first week that there was no Farbrengen. What happened as a consequence of the first Chav Zayin Adar? 2 years later we had the second Chav Zayin Adar, and then we had Gimel Tammuz. How old was the Rebbe in Gimel Tammuz? 92. So the Rebbe is saying, you're going to come to Parshas Pekudei. And, if anybody remembers, right before the Rebbe had his stroke, right before that, the fervor of Moshiach in Lubavitch was like going through the roof. Week after week, it was getting like, it was like, it peaked right then. If I have to describe how Chav Zayin Adar suddenly hit us all, like bang! And then we kind of figured it out, and we got back in, and then the second Chav Zayin Adar, and then Gimel Tammuz and all that. But if anything has to, so imagine a chasana, and everybody's like the best, and the most intense dance, you got the pimentas here, it's like really going good, it's like everybody's into it. And suddenly, the power goes out in the building. It gets dark, and boom, like a middle of nowhere. That's exactly what it was like. Who would have ever? So, what happens? You get to that at the end of Parshas Pekudei, and Balik, all the Simanei Geula. So the Rebbe says, depends how you read it. You can read it like the Bacher of the Zetzer and say, Beli Kol Siman. There's no Siman. You talk a Siman. There's no Siman. Fartik. You wanted, you tried, didn't work. Okay. Beli Kol Siman, no Siman. The Rebbe says, but if you really realize what's happening, Beli Kol, you're supposed to read it different. Beli Kol, when there isn't anything, in other words, when it gets dark, Siman, that's the Siman. Because the Siman for the birth of Malchus Beis David is Parshas Pekudei. What's Pekudei mean? Pekudei is the same word as absence and remembrance. V'nifkadeta, you will be remembered. Ki yapaket moshevecha, when your seat will be vacant. We all know the famous Haftarah, we say Erev Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos. We say a Haftarah called Machar Chodesh, tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh. That's the Shaila, we say Machar Chodesh, tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh. Good, so you'll celebrate tomorrow. Why do you celebrate Erev Rosh Chodesh that tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh? Especially it's strange because Shabbos has its own Haftarah. If Shabbos comes after Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos steps to the side and lets Rosh Chodesh have it. Shabbos is very humble. It will step aside for everybody. For Chanukah, for Purim, for Shkolim, for Zachar. Anybody who has anything to say, Shabbos says, okay, Parshas HaShavua steps to the side and hands over the Haftarah. But that's if it's a Yom Tov. This is Erev Rosh Chodesh. Erev Rosh Chodesh. Why should Shabbos Haftarah go away for that? The answer is, The whole power of Rish Chodesh is not in Rish Chodesh, is in Erev Rish Chodesh. Because why does the moon, what's the whole union of the moon? The moon, in order for it to be born again, a new moon, it first disappears from the sky, and Chassidus explains that's the bittul. The bittul that has to happen in Malchus, when it becomes completely null and void, as if it doesn't exist. And then Dafka, because of that bittul, it has the yichud, the unification back with her husband, and that renews it. And we know, why is that so important? Because we say by Kiddush Levana, Shehema Sidim L'Schadish Kamoisa, the Jewish people also, after we hit rock bottom, after we went through a Holocaust, will come back. And after there is a certain Chas v'Shalom disappearance of Melech Mibeis David, and becomes vacant, we should know that it's not Chas v'Shalom, it doesn't end in the vacancy. Then if Kadato, you're going to be remembered, Ki Yipoket Mashavecha. What happened to David HaMelech? Let's see the story. David HaMelech, Shaul HaMelech, Yonason says to David HaMelech, tomorrow will be Chodesh. Shaul HaMelech will be expecting you by the Suda. If you show up to the Suda, then no one's going to talk about you. But since you're not going to be there, Ki Yipoket Mashavecha, because your seat is going to be vacant, then if Kadato, you're going to be remembered. And that's mamish the Indian of Erev Rosh Chodesh. Erev Rosh Chodesh, there is a vacant seat. Chodesh, that's Mashiach, that's Geula, that's already the redemption. The moon reappears. So what's Pashas Pekudei? Pashas Pekudei is mamish this idea. So you can read it in two ways. You can read it Beli Kol Siman, or you can read Beli. If you want to know what the Siman is, the Siman is when you're going to have an emptiness, a darkness, a period of concealment. You're going to see the red chair sitting there by the Farbrengen, and no one is sitting on the chair. So Beli Kol Siman, that's the Siman. Okay. I said, wow, this is... And then I'm thinking about it more, and I'm thinking, no, well, why is it in two words? Beli, Kol. So here's an amazing thing. In Chassidus we learn there's Yesod and Malchus. Malchus is the Makabel. Malchus is the moon. Malchus doesn't have anything of its own. Yesod is the Mashpia. Yesod is called Kol. Yesod is called Kol, like we say in every day in davening. L'cha Hashem HaGdula, which is Chesed, HaGvura, V'Ateferes, V'Anetzach, V'Ahoid. And then we say L'cha Hashem HaMamlacha. What happened with Yesod? Ki Kol B'Shamayim U'Ba'aretz. Kol is Yesod. Because it's Makabel from all the spheres, and it channels it down to Malchus. That's why it's Kol is Yesod. What's Malchus? Malchus les le megar me klum. She doesn't have anything. So what's Malchus? Malchus is Beli. Beli means I don't have anything. Beli, chab garnished. That's Malchus. We see an amazing thing between the Rebbe and the Farbrengen Rebbe. Tonight is the night when the two connect. Tonight, Yud Shvat, is the night when the two connect. Farbrengen Rebbe's name is Yesod. Is Yosef. Yosef is Yesod. The Farbrengen Rebbe's life, by the way, mirrors Yosef HaTzadik. He's the one that goes into jail. He's the one that suffers. He's the one that his brothers dislike. The Farbrengen Rebbe had a lot of snagdas from even the Chassidim. The Farbrengen Rebbe had a very hard time. Mamash, everything of it. Yesod, the Farbrengen Rebbe is Yesod. You see the Farbrengen Rebbe is so, Yesod is bonding, connecting. The Farbrengen Rebbe bonded with Chassidim like no other Rebbe. He shares his emotions. He shares. He reveals. No other Rebbe was so open. It was like, it's very interesting. The Rebbe is the opposite. The Rebbe is very malchustic, very withdrawn, very removed. But in any case, you find by the Rebbe an interesting thing. Every one of our Rebbeim, when they became Rebbe, they're Rebbe. They are Rebbe. Of course, they're sitting the Mamal Makim of their father, and they also went to the Farbrengen. You know, the Farbrengen Rebbe would always go to his father, to the Daven, and so forth, to the Oilim of the previous Rebbeim, Tzemach Tzedek. But when someone came for a bracha, they gave the bracha on their own. They didn't run to the oil of the Farbrengen Rebbe and say, here, I'm bring the brachas. They were a Rebbe. And you also see it in their Maimarim. All Maimarim of the Rabbeim are Be'ikr built on the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is ganz Chassidus. And they all flesh it out. I'm not saying there's no Chedushim, of course a lot of Chedushim, but the Nekudas HaChachma is there from the Alter Rebbe's Maimarim. Yet, if you look at, you learn a Maimer from the Tzemach Tzedek, he doesn't say, and the Alter Rebbe says, and the Mittler Rebbe says, and so that, no, it's his own Maimer. It's Mem Yosef. And in the Haggai, he writes, all the things, but When you learn the Rebbe Rashab is Maimorim, is he telling you the whole time, even though it's built on the Tzemach Tzedek? He's not. And everybody's Maimer is complete different style than the Rebbe. The Rebbe's Maimer is like, you see, especially the Basi Legani Maimorim. The Rebbe makes sure to quote every single one of the Rebbe. But if you look in Bechlal, the Rebbe's Maimorim, it takes everybody, it's almost like it doesn't say anything of his own, but the time it comes out the other side, nothing is his. Asker al Atzion, everything goes to the feet. Why? Because Malchus doesn't have anything of its own. It has to go to Yesod. It's like the moon. The moon shines the light of the sun. You know what's interesting? When the Rebbe says Asker, we call it oil. How does the Rebbe refer to it? Asker al Atzion. It's an interesting lashon. Tzion is the exact gematria as Yosef. That's what it says in Chassidus. Tzion is Yosef. And the Medrash says, Kol ma she'ira l'tzion, ira l'Yosef. Or the opposite. Kol ma she'ira l'Yosef, ira l'tzion. Whatever happened to Yosef HaTzadik happened to Tzion, the Jewish people. So Tzion is Yosef. When the Rebbe says, Asker al Tzion, means the Rebbe says, I'm going to Yesod. There's no Hamshach in Malchus if it's not coming through Yesod. So now let's take a look and see in the Rebbe's 92 years, what do you have? You have two tkufas. You have 42 and you have 50. When initially I read this, I made a mistake. I thought that the Rebbe became Rebbe when he was 50 years old. So then I had a simple pshat. Kol is the Rebbe when he's still standing in the shadows of the Friedrich Rebbe. That's Kol. The Rebbe is still, Malchus is completely not seen because the Rebbe is kind of behind. Like you see the pictures of the Rebbe standing like an Eved, like you want to learn what a chassid is. You watch the Rebbe being a chassid, right? So that's 50. And then the Beli is the time that the Rebbe is kind of Rebbe, Malchus onto its own, reflecting the lights from Kol. But then, after I examined a little more, I realized it's not true because the Rebbe became Rebbe as 48. Maybe he was still 47 actually. So it's really 48. Shleimah is 48, so it didn't fit. But then I realized it's not really the case. Why? When the moon, when the moon, it says in Chassidus, when does the moon get dark? When you look at the moon, you don't see the moon. When the moon is actually closer to the sun. When it's closer to the sun, it's in a state of such bittul to the sun that you don't see the moon. When the moon goes away, like the lashon of Chassidus is, I did the Torah the mivla aloy polit. When it's holding the middle absorbing, it can't give out. So the disappearance of the moon is during the time of his Kabbalah Hashefa. When he goes out and he projects, that's when you can see the moon as an independent entity, because it's giving light on. So the 40, how many years was the Rebbe actually projecting and teaching? Farbrengen and being full. No, but as Rebbe. Started 48, when he was 48 till 92, so you would say that what? How many years? That's not 42, 44 years. 44 years. From 48 till 92, till the age of 92. But the last 2 years, after Chav Zayin Adar, the Rebbe gave a whole sikha before that the Friedrich Rebbe couldn't talk. Remember, the Rebbe gave a whole sikha that the Friedrich Rebbe couldn't talk. So how many years do we have the Rebbe actually fully engaged and being Rebbe and fully teaching? 42 years. 42 years that we see Malchus. But where was the Rebbe the first 48 years of his life? Kind of in the shadows of the Friedrich Rebbe. How about the last 2 years? Where did the Rebbe have the stroke? Where? The Rebbe went to the Ohel. And over there, Chav Zayin Adar happened. In other words, the moon went back to the sun. So those 2 years join the 50 years of Kol. In other words, because it's time for Mashiach, It's not no more the light of the previous light. It's now time for a whole new Hamshacha. Malchus needs to go back to have a total bittul and a total nullification. Has to go into a state of Kiyapakid Marshavecha, your seat is going to be vacant. And over there, and that's Beli Kol Simon. It's hinted to actually in the words, and that's the Simon. It's taking a long time. We're sure it's going to be a powerful revelation if it's taking so long. But whatever it is, it's good enough. It's good enough. We're ready for the nifkadet to happen already. What's interesting is Pashas Pekudei. That's the whole. And what's Pashas Pekudei? Dira b'tachtaina. Pekudei is Yud Shvat. What's Pekudei? Pekudei is B'poyel Mamish. We built the Mishkan for the Eibishter. Kvoid Hashem Mila es HaMishkan. That's Yud Shvat. That's the completion of this whole Inyan. We shouldn't get the spol from the Beli Kol. We should know Beli Kol Simon. That was L'chaim.